Okay, thanks for coming, everybody. We want to talk about one of my favorite topics here, which is the LATAM connection. And we are talking with three representatives of the power of Miami right now and how it's connecting with LATAM. The first one is my Argentinian friend, Charlie Snall. He's the managing director of Manatech. Manatech is part of Mana Group. I think everybody that has been in Miami knows Mana very well. It's one of the originally real estate, I would say OGs, I would like to say. But right now it's becoming community builder, tech investor, plus a person that would like to, let's say, shape the future of Miami. And Charlie is a key part of that vision. So welcome, and you also have your entrepreneurial past.
Yes.
Which is super important to share your views. Then we have TJ Villamil, Senior Vice President of Trade and Enterprises in Florida. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think we all are Spanish speakers. No, well, yes, you're Chilean. I know you from the Venture City. Eyal Shats, co-founder and Chief Strategy Officer of SimpliRoute, a startup that is doing, I would say, applying AI on top of last mile delivery. I don't know if I'm right or, okay, perfect. And they are a Chilean company that is impacting all LATAM, and they have here part of the company, or at least they have investors, and they're common suspects. Usually you participate in conferences and you are part of the Miami ecosystem. Either way, your HQ is in Chile or here. So thank you everybody for coming, and I have some questions. I don't know if you would like to have an initial remark or say something about how is your Miami right now and how has changed lately before I start with the questions.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and jump in because I love to kind of give like a macro overview of what is happening, right? You know, Miami is what happens when all the creative and intellectual capital of Latin America comes together and builds a city. Almost out of nowhere, right? You got to think of what Miami was just 70 years ago, and the skyline and the thing that you see today is a perfect example of that, right? I have my friend from Chile here, who's also Israeli. I have my friend from Argentina over here. My parents are Cuban, right? I'm first generation. I have some of my team, Brasilera, right there, Fernanda. So you could see this global thriving metropolis really benefiting from what Latin America could be, right? And today, you're seeing both worlds kind of come together from the Northeast now. That's been the most recent, all the transplants that are coming here. But then also all of the Latin Americans that have been investing in Miami and in Florida for the last 15, 20 years. And so people think that what's happening in Miami and Florida was an overnight success, but we knew this is 20 years at least in the making. And so we're very proud of our ties and our connection to Latin America as a state. In Florida, and then now I'm leveraging this to sell what Florida and Miami are to the world. I'm telling everyone in Asia, investors, big companies, and in Europe that we are the best place to do business in Latin America, and we really take advantage of that. So that's kind of the groundwork, and then we'll jump right into it.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm a believer of your view. I think everybody here, the four of us, are like super aligned on that, and I think it's very important that out of Miami, people get to know that.
Yeah, and I think that, like adding to what TJ was saying, if we look at what happened now in April, talking more about the tech side of it, right? And it's April in Miami, it's called the Tech Month. There's a specific week that is the Tech Week, and this was generated all throughout the pandemic, and that suddenly somebody declared that it was the Tech Week, and a lot of VCs and startups and people started gathering and it became a thing, and now we had thousands and thousands of people in April coming to Miami. It kind of goes around a large event that is called Emerge Americas. A lot of you may know it. There's more than, I think it was like 20,000 people almost that went through Emerge. And only in our space, which we have a space in downtown for doing events and welcoming the international community, we work a lot with international community, as TJ was saying, mainly Latin America, but also Spain. We had like 80 people coming from France. So we had 50 people coming from Dominican Republic, including government and private parties that are coming to Miami to get connected with the ecosystem here. We had, so France, Dominican Republic, Spain also brought 50 executives and startups. Dominican Republic, I said already, Brazil, Colombia, the venture capital associations from Latin America all came to have their annual event here in Miami. So you had all the VCs from LATAM in one place. There's another event that gathers, Riverwood Capital does it with 100 top entrepreneurs from Latin America. And you had people like Maluma and Manu Ginobili being part of these events. So all these people are coming to Miami because I think they're seeing that this is spurring, and I think it's the beginning of something that, as you said, it's been in the works for 20 years, and I think the past 2 to 3 years we are actually seeing it happening and building that momentum. So I think there's no better time to be in Miami than now.
Yeah, I can add, we also had F1 this last week, right? So it's really important. And we are going to talk about it, right, in the panel. But like the first question I was getting from my friends, right, not the ones that are really in the ecosystem is, wow, Miami, why, right? Maybe San Francisco, Silicon Valley, New York, maybe. Are you going to Miami to do business? I don't believe you, right?
Yeah, sure. Are you going to Miami to learn Spanish? No, English. I mean, no. So the same.
And now explaining, and it's much clearer for us that we're in the ecosystem, right, and then different events, and it's amazing. I just had to tell them, okay, now I need to choose, right, where I go, because there are so many contacts, so many networking, so many events. So you have to organize your calendar, right, and scheduling. Okay, it's really important. And what is more interesting? I'm looking for customers, I'm looking for investors, I'm looking for relationship. So there are so many things going on that it's really hard to choose. So it's been amazing for us, and we can talk about it later in the panel.
Okay, I was telling them that I think your mic is not working.
Maybe it's me. Okay?
I don't know, or mine.
I think it's working.
Or maybe I'm listening more to okay. So I wanted to ask you something. From an investor point of view, I know that maybe you don't write check, but if you were an investor and you come to Miami, what do you look for? One of the things that Eyal was saying, I think is very important, and it's changing the public image that Miami has, and I think the mayor is doing a great job with that as a Miami ambassador somehow, like the capital of capital and all that. We like to have fun. We live where people vacation, yeah, sure. But also we are hustling, working hard, and building something new that has never been done before. So from an investor point of view, what would you look for when you come here? What makes this space unique right now from both a talent point of view plus, I would say, infrastructure? I think it's very different here. And there are some misconceptions related to the weather. I remember when Amazon was thinking about the HQ2. Everybody was like, no, they're not going to make it. No, never, because they had the hurricanes. And I was like, well, Jeff Bezos was grown up here in Palmetto, so he knows what's going on here, and he knows why yes and why no. But I think due to that weather condition, we are better prepared than many more places in the world. And that's also different. So I would like to know, what do you think from both talent plus what's already here?
No, I think you hit on so many important points. Really, one of the things that we always talk about when it comes to the state of Florida is that you got to think our economy was very concentrated in the past, right? We were much more known for our agriculture and our beaches and our tourism, right? But most recently, military and defense, aviation, aerospace just passed agriculture as our second largest industry in the state of Florida. And what happened is over the last 20 years, we took all this wealth that we were generating from the tourism industry and we diversified it into focused areas, into these target markets, right? Into creating the right space. So not only do we have a beautiful climate, but we have one of the most favorable tax climates and business and regulatory environments, right? And at the same time, we took the revenue generated from taxes and we invested it into these clusters around the state. And so that's why you're seeing us as the launch capital of the world. That's why you see our infrastructure is so high quality, right? We have 15 deep water seaports, and I would say, argue, some of the best in the world, as well as our roads, our airports. One of my favorite statistics is that Miami International Airport has been the #1 international cargo airport in the country 5 years running. And that's because we do a lot with perishables with Colombia and Ecuador. You got to think shrimp and flowers. But we also do a lot when it comes to pharmaceuticals with Brazil, so as a transshipment, right? But most importantly, Miami International Airport just passed JFK and LAX as the #1 international passenger airport in the country. And that's because of all the business that we do with LATAM. And then lastly, and when it comes to infrastructure, is the Bright Line, right? And so this is going to be connecting now South Florida to Orlando. And you also mentioned talent, right? Florida is the #1 state for education. The rankings just came out by U.S. News and World Report. And we've had the best higher education system now 5 years in a row by U.S. News and World Report. So I think Florida did a great job over the past years of taking the wealth generated by tourism and agriculture and investing it into our infrastructure, into our talent, and creating the right space to capture kind of this movement that's happening right now. And a lot of it has to come with our ties and our natural ties to Latin America. So that's kind of what I think is happening, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Go, Eyal.
Yeah, only to add, like from our side, we are not only here for the ecosystem, right? So also to get customers and to get business. And we are in logistics, so we are in last mile deliveries in logistics, so we can see all what we have mentioned, we can see it. So we can see all the demand like for smart logistics and for get better deliveries, right? So we have Amazon, and then we have like the big example of how it works. But if you see like the mid-sized level companies, they're really struggling on how to solve like the last delivery. We saw in the previous panel, we saw drones and we saw different solutions, right? So we are in the same space. So for us, it's been amazing also, like not only for the ecosystem and investors and entrepreneurs, also for business sides. So, and we can talk about it later, but we've been solving really hard stuff in LATAM, right? So if you're able to solve like the traffic in Mexico City, right? You can solve everything. So after like doing, but talking seriously, we have been like for 7 years, we have been like struggling and solving really difficult issues in logistics in LATAM. And here we have much better infrastructure, much better systems, but we are still struggling. So what we are doing, like taking all the lessons from LATAM and applying it to Florida, and it's been amazing.
You were asking about the investor side and why Miami, is a place, and you're talking about talent. And I think in our case, we invest, and we're starting to structure that investment a bit more, but we invest in companies like, for example, something of what Eyal is doing. These are Latin founders that have done something interesting in Latin America, and then they're coming to the US. And I don't think that there's another place that they can go that is not Miami in that sense, because of how easy it is for them to develop that, especially the initial steps into the US market. Like when you go to places like New York or San Francisco, maybe you have to be part of some league in order to get into the people that can actually fund you. Miami, by its nature and its DNA, is very, very open community. We are also in a space or in a phase now that we're welcoming this collaboration and we're welcoming the growth of the community in tech. So it's much easier to open doors here. It's much easier to get to the people that can actually give you some, whether it's you want to get initial customers or you want to get your initial checks, as we were saying. I think the path is much shorter and faster to do here in Miami. And what we look for is saying, okay, we try to work with the founders in sort of their journey. It's not something that they come here and, okay, I'll give you the money for you to try your luck in the US. We always say, get the money in your country or in your region in order to fund your first 18 months in the US, and we'll support you throughout those 18 months, and then we'll see how you develop. And I think that let's say the advantage that they have here is that they can access those decision makers in companies to do their initial, whether it's MVP concepts or if they want to do pilots or if they want to start having their early customers. Just because it's the same, a lot of these HQs that are here in Miami are run by Latin people. A lot of the regional headquarters of Latin America are here in Miami. So you have the audience that you're addressing is maybe much more culturally aligned to what they're bringing from Latin America. They're also understand the models that they developed in those countries, and they see, well, if you could make this work in economies and in environments like Chile, Argentina, or others that are much more irregular in terms of their the regulatory aspects and the financial aspects. So if you were able to make it there, then here in the US with a much more stable economy and environment, you're going to be able to have a home run, let's say. So yeah. I think that part is that we always say, if you made it down there with the opportunities that you get here, you're going to make it 10x. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it takes me to, before Miami, I used to live in San Francisco. And I was there while Rappi and Platzi got into Y Combinator. So it was like a blooming stage of startup, but at the same time, I was there and I saw a lot of startups, either from Spain or from Mexico, that went there and they weren't aware of the cost of being there, plus the runway they had. So I saw companies that tried that dream and in 6 months, they didn't have the company, didn't have the runway, didn't have anything. From that point of view, I think Miami is way more friendly. Not because it's more cost effective, still, okay, we're not going to complain. It's okay, but because I think there's a different ecosystem, or to me this is more right now like an open canvas where people are starting to build the ecosystem, so they are more open to help each other and to be more, like there's a early stage community too, in which people trust each other and are open to do tests and help them. So I think it's part of the magic moment we are living in. And this takes me to, you were talking about testing the product, creating new things, doing experiments, and I think Miami has been doing that with like self-driving cars. So I wanted to ask Eyal, from a developer point of view, what do you find? Because I remember that one of the, I think, first Chilean unicorns, it was Corner Shop, right? When it was bought by Uber, and it's pure delivery company. It's not just because Uber wanted to have groceries. It's also because they like their tech. So it's something built down there that is appealing for a US company. And that's also an interesting exit way, right? Like you can sell your company, you can do IPO, like different options. So I wanted to ask you about that. Like, how do you connect with this ecosystem? And what abilities you see for your specific side, the delivery?
100%. We are like, we have the same approach. So we have many customers in LATAM, like a big corporation, and they have office anywhere, right? And they also have an operation in the US. So what we are doing usually, like we are doing like the test, like the MVP. It's not MVP for them. It's real operation. It's more MVP. So if we have a small operation in Chile, right? And we can test it, and it's much more agile, and we have much more flexibility. And we can do the testing, and we can go, then we go to Miami here, and we go to the same customer, and we can show them the result, but also we can apply it in the US. So it's easier, it's different, right? The main question will always be, okay, who are your customers in the US? No one wants to be the Winnie pig, right? So it's, okay, how many customers do you have in the US? No, I have thousands of customers in LATAM. Okay, but how many do you have in the US? It's different if, I will say one case, we have Walmart, right? So if we are going to Walmart and we are already doing Chile, we are doing Central America, we are doing Mexico. So now we can go to Canada and we can go to Bentonville, and then it's different. So we can build the case. So we are connecting all the dots.
Makes a lot of sense. So I had a question that was, what makes LATAM so special? And I think you just answered, like, there's a deep connection between, like, big companies from here that operate there, and it's a two-way, right? Like now, I guess, like Falabella, maybe they are not in the US, but you've tested with them, so you have that experience. What's that magic from your point of view? What makes LATAM very appealing for Miami?
Okay, I'll answer that one. I think that the
Wait, because I don't hear you with the helicopter. Is part of the show, or is so they're coming after us? Okay.
oh, it's not a silent drone, I guess. Nice.
Ya sabes lo tuyo.
So should I yell?
Vienen a por ti. Ya sabes lo tuyo, vienen a por ti.
Okay. No, I think that to what Eyal was saying is also and this is maybe more philosophy and things that actually we also talk about this with Moish a lot and saying, hey, how can we do to unite Latin America? Because it's very hard to get, and we're talking about investing in LATAM and you know, grabbing somebody from, I don't know, from Qatar or Saudi Arabia that we try to play there and bring them here to Miami so that we can bring dollars to our ecosystem here. And then if you talk to them about Chile or Uruguay or, you know, Colombia, like they're really small markets for the ambitions that investors have. Brazil, it's maybe a very interesting market. Mexico as well. The rest of Latin America, I think it's something that needs to be united in order to become attractive for investors. So that's where we challenge sort of the entrepreneurs to say, okay, if you're doing something in Colombia and then there's another guy doing something similar in Peru and somebody, then why don't you get together and then you have a region, right? Because then it becomes more attractive. So I think that Miami has that opportunity, let's say, and can be the catalyst for this collaboration and for this seeing the Americas sort of as one. So I mean, when you're asking about yes, if, as Eyal was saying, he's doing business with Walmart in Chile, maybe Walmart in Mexico, and combining those and make it like a case that, look, if you combine all these markets together, then I have this, I mean, I'm working with the size of the market that you have here in the US. So I think that that's something that we need to work more in you know, uniting the different countries in Latin America to make it attractive enough for a US investor.
Okay, that's super interesting. But sometimes I wish there was kind of a euro, or they use the dollar more openly, because that's one of the barriers they find, right? Like different, especially I mean like Central America or places where the local currency is depreciating very quick, and that make it less appealing for investors or to connect. So if you look at it from the other side, I think it's more interesting when places like Argentina, where the peso is suffering and struggling, but there's a big pool of talent. Like Otho is a unicorn. Like they're recurrently building unicorns, and the pool of talent is amazing. So they have the opportunity to export and come here, and there's already a community. So how do you see that? That I'm not thinking about just the remote era, but the talent that could be exported here and work here.
Yeah, and this, well, you're talking about Argentina, and I am Argentinian, so I might be biased, but...
That's why I ask you. You are biased, and that's why I ask you.
Well, actually, I mean, 5 of my team are from Argentina as well, so I believe in Argentinian talent a lot. But and I think that it has to do with something of what I was talking before, like the resiliency, you know, like the fact that if you want to be an entrepreneur and be successful in a country like Argentina, you have to learn to be a lawyer, to be an accountant, to you have to sell, you have to do, but just because of the things are changing constantly in your environment. So that builds, I think, resiliency and I'd say a sense of survival that is maybe missing when you see it in the U.S. because here everything it's easier. I would say it's like you can plan. I can plan for the next 2, 3, 5 years, and everything is going to be more or less the same. So the strategy is, I think it's much stronger. A strategic mindset is stronger in the U.S. But I don't know how to call it, like the street smarts or the way of like pivoting models and realizing very quickly about the threats and opportunities that are in the market. I see that talent in Latin America a lot. So that's what took me to create originally what I did with Base Miami, which is the accelerator for Latin tech companies. Because I thought, look, if we can grab these guys that are doing these things in Latin America and bring them here early so that they can start building here, because I think that's the difference also, like starting a business in Latin America, growing it in Latin America, and then trying to bring it to the US, it's a very different path than bringing those entrepreneurs early and bring them here so that they can start solving the problem directly here. And that we've seen like the the difference of mindset that they also get when they come here, and because it opens their eyes to the possibilities, right? So yeah, I don't know. I got lost there in the train of thought.
But there are two things that I think are very important once you come here, and it's here they help you think big, and that's super important. And second, you have exposure to different ideas and point of view, and that like makes you way richer, like intellectually, than before. And I think it's something that you take it as granted once you're here, but when you think back, it's like, oh, if I weren't here, I wouldn't have known this or connected to this, or so that makes a big difference, and that's why I think it's important what you're doing, taking companies here. Maybe they're not successful with what they are building right now, but just becoming that piece of the ecosystem, or just that you were telling me Etienne is working with you, or okay, he had a startup, but he's building something interesting based on that previous experience, and that has a big value. So I was about to ask you about how do you find that Miami can also give to LATAM? Because we've been talking about those that come here and do here, but from a Miami point of view, what we can give there in that way, like from here to sell there, not just coming and selling here, but the opposite too, because now I'm also biased. I've been most of my life a journalist. Now I work at a startup as comes, but finally a journalist at heart. So when I think about LATAM, I also think about there's potentially 600 million people market speaking Spanish, and somehow they are underserved, right? Like they don't have the same quality products or content, and I think it's something that Miami understands. And I mean, like broadcasting companies have been doing that. Music industry has not just conquered LATAM or from Miami, but the world. Like right now, if you go to Billboard, the top charts are Spanish speakers. And I think it's something from a tech point of view could be done from here too. So I think the three of you have somehow that responsibility too, like exporting Miami not just as a brand, but also the mindset, the way we do business and what's going on here in tech, that impact is directly related to LATAM. So how do you see that, or how are you promoting that too?
Okay, I'll start with that one just because I mean it's very ingrained in what we do. I'm Moishe, who's the founder of Manacommon, and that I work with him in our mission, which is a joint mission, and he talks about building the digital infrastructure of Latin America in Miami, right? And when I ask him like, okay, what does that mean? Sometimes the answer goes in different directions, but in essence, what we're saying is, if we bring the brains of the different operations and the CEOs, the founders here, we connect them to, as you were saying, the mentors, the experts that are in this space that really open their eyes to what they can achieve if they think global, if they think bigger, if they don't stay with their local environment, because usually the local environment also makes you think smaller. So bringing those influencers and thought leaders and really founders and entrepreneurial leaders from their companies to Miami I think that allows them to get a lot of knowledge and things that they can bring down to Latin America and expand not only in their companies but also in their ecosystem. So I think that part of education and connection and mentorship and giving them the tools to be able to grow is one of the things that Miami can do a lot still, and that we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, but we need much more support. And then the other thing is also resources, like financial resources and investment. We are part of what we're doing now is building a venture arm that will invest directly in Latin America. So yes, the end goal and eventually is for these entrepreneurs and founders to come to Miami and these companies to come to Miami. But we're more interested in them first growing in their market, so that they can be mature enough when they're ready, then they will come here, and that's what we're doing now with our impact investment side. So we're going to be investing in impact entrepreneurs in Latin America for their growth in LATAM. So,
What about you?
I think the only thing I'll really add to that is maybe I come in from a different perspective, but I feel like, unfortunately, and fortunately, right, LATAM's greatest asset is its people, no doubt, right? But unfortunately, there's political decisions that they make down there that keeps getting in their own way, right? I think Venezuela is the greatest example of that of the last 20 years, because they were Florida's largest trading partner just 10 years ago, and now they're not even in the top 20. And so we're looking at the political shifts down there, and I'm hopeful with something that I saw in Paraguay. We went to Ecuador last year. And so there's some governments that are maybe more amenable to the free market, but what we've seen, this leftward shift, and the recent elections in Chile in the House that we're paying attention, right, are a rebuke of the government there. But really, if you unleash the intellectual capital and the talent of LATAM, you can get beautiful economies, right? All the U.S. headquarters were in Caracas 20 years ago, and they're not even there anymore. Now we went down to Sao Paulo a couple months ago, and they're all there now, but all of the entrepreneurs and the companies and these great family businesses are kind of nervous, right? And we don't know what's going to happen, but they're certainly looking at investing in Florida and then selling back to their own country as opposed to building there. We would much rather have stronger partners and strong economies to our south. And I think now, it behooves the United States, now more than ever, to have strong economies and strong partners to our south with a belligerent CCP, right? All we're talking about is reshoring, nearshoring, and my favorite word is friendshoring, right? We want to invest in like-minded democracies that have our similar values, and there's no reason why we should be as heavily invested as we are in China, and we should bring all that to these great economies to our south. But really, it just gets worrisome when you see these big shifts in politics, and because I think that really hinders a lot of the creative talent that's down there. Now, Miami and Florida certainly benefit either way, which is kind of the weird paradox. We would much rather have stronger partners, but if something goes south, like it did in Venezuela, we now have all the Venezuelan Americans that are here that are building Florida and Miami and making it much better than how they found it. So, I think that's my 2 cents. Is I just hope that we can export a lot of the business and financial climate and regulatory environment to kind of get out of the way of the creative talent that's down there. Because not just in Chile, it's not just in Argentina. When we were in Brazil last month, all they were talking about was the costo do Brasil. It's just that all these economies, and so it's just an unfortunate way of doing business. Now, it makes those people a lot more resilient, grit. In Miami, we call it the Magic City hustle, right?
No, but I think it's important what you're saying, because we are optimistic, so it's like, oh, if I did it there, I can do it anywhere. Yeah, that's the good part. The bad part is you've been having unnecessary pain in order to get there, so that's unnecessary pain. And also, I think sometimes it's controversial, like, hey, you have a company in Florida and Delaware, you don't want to pay taxes. It's like, it's not about the taxes, it's about the business framework. Because my investors wants me to have there my HQ, because that's business friendly, and I'm under the U.S. law. So if anything goes bad, they know where the money is going, and they can invest in you. It's not that they don't want to invest in a company. No, they cannot trust those like political tsunamis that comes and goes. So if you want to invest, it's not that you don't want to invest in that company. is that you want to have like a clear framework on where you are putting your money. And I think that's something that any entrepreneur understands. It's more like the public opinion somehow that are not there. And thinking about what you were saying about Venezuela and all that, I think it's good for Miami because there's a big pool of talent, and both in Argentina or the Andrés Bello University, both in Colombia and Venezuela are really good. But at the same time, it's sad to see that when the market could be bigger and brighter. So totally agree.
That's right. And we can even go further back, right? You look at Buenos Aires and Havana in the 50s, and these were cities that, you know, had the same productivity as European capitals and major cities in America, right? And then, you know, it's just one of those, it's like una tristeza, right? It's just, you know, like what could be? Well, guess what? Florida was a swamp back then, and now Florida is what could be. And so I think if we export, you know, what we have here, I would start with the framework, with the political environment, because we are that shining city. I really believe Florida is America's present and future, and it really starts with the people that we have.
Excellent.
Like maybe two things. So we all agree that the talent is amazing, right, in LATAM. Also, like an advantage for us, like as entrepreneurs. So having like the headquarters here and the business side here, but having the I know it's different view, right? But having like the R&D in Chile or in Argentina, it's in terms of costs, it's advantage. So we have a lot of like investors like asking, okay, where do you have like your development team? I have it in Argentina, in Chile. Amazing. So you can combine, right? So we know that there's amazing talent, and it's hard like to get all the talent that we have. We have like 60 people between Chile and Argentina doing development. So we won't bring everyone to Florida. It doesn't make any sense. But we can combine. I think that's maybe the secret there.
Okay.
And
so
the other point, like from previous question. So like how we can like take advantage from being here when we are, it's maybe Argentina is a little bit less, but when we are in Chile, we think like Chile is central of the world, right? So we are there, it's really, really small, but everything is happening, and the economy depends on the situation. It's okay, and it's growing, and we think we know everything, right? But you have no access like to events, you have no access like to, but you have internet, and you think you're connected. And you come here, and it's amazing the difference. So here you're really connected. So I think like explaining and connecting and doing the job, being here to connect the real connection, and not like the internet connection and like reading wired, right? It's really, really good, but it's not enough, right? You need to be here, you need to talk with people, you need to do networking, it's different.
Yeah, before closing, because if not, Pablo is gonna kill me. I wanted to ask you something that is a very like VC question somehow, but it's funny. Is the typical, more than what keeps you up at night, is what's your number one priority right now? Like if you had to solve an issue, what would be the first thing you'd like to solve right now?
For me?
Everybody, that's our closing question. So like your top priority of, oh, I wish I could change this, or this has to be, or I'm working on making this happen.
Yeah, in these terms, I've been talking about a lot of positive things, right? But the economy is really complicated in general, and the investment. So what we are doing now is like changing a little bit the way that we focus our startup. So it's been like growing, and raising money. Today, we are thinking about more making the company more sustainable, right? So getting closer to break even, and then raise the next area. So we are going to raise Series B. So let's talk later, right? And in Q4, but we are really aiming like to controlling the cost and to hopefully get to break even in Q4 before doing the next round.
Excellent.
We have a state investment fund called the Florida Opportunity Fund. So let's talk. No, look, Florida has now grown-up challenges, right? We have challenges with our affordable housing now that I think the state Senate just passed. That's one thing, and then obviously transportation. But Florida continues to build, so I'm not as worried about that. The big thing that keeps me up at night is I have two young kids, and I see everybody coming to Miami and coming to Florida from now across the United States. It's no longer just LATAM up; it's now across the United States. So my goal, my biggest challenge is like I hope we can export, some of this Florida freedom, if you will, of business freedom, of regulatory freedom, of tax climate freedom, and help our other big cities and states that basically had a huge lead in New York and California, Illinois, get back some of their swag or their mojo, because I don't think it should just be Florida and Miami now, this new hot thing. I think America is best when we're all competing, and I want San Francisco to deal with its homelessness problem. I want them to get back, that swag that they had, because I think it makes us better, right? I think it's kind of overwhelming as a local, to get all of this capital and all of this influx of people here. And if there's nowhere else to go in America, then what? And so I think the laboratory of ideas in America will play itself out. But it's certainly Florida's time right now, at least for the next decade plus. But I would love to see, Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, correct some of its problems and get very, very competitive again. I think it'd make it a lot more fun.
What about you, Charlie?
I think there's two things that I'm most focused on now, and it's kind of, I don't know if it keeps me up at night, but it's something that we want to work hard on. It's bringing more and more companies to Florida, to Miami, and more than the companies, it's the entrepreneurs, as we said, to have them come and have that change in mindset and realizing what they can actually build from here to Latin America, or starting Latin America and then coming here, but just changing that mindset. So the more people, I call it like evangelizing about the Miami opportunity to as many people as we can. We've worked with about 200 startups in the last 4 years, and so this year we want to get to 150 just this year, and to grow that number of companies coming to Miami, even if it's for a week or 2 weeks or a month, but just come, see, and then that will make them come back. And then the second thing is bringing more money to Latin America as well, like supporting the ecosystems. There's around $15 billion that are invested in the whole of LATAM, and only here in Miami is $5 billion, right? So there's a big opportunity to bring some of this money to the ecosystems and to the doers in Latin America, so that, as you said, I mean, definitely if we could have the governments work on that mindset and changing the reality, it's tough usually with LATAM governments. So I think that the entrepreneurs and the changers that are there can affect that and can change a country from more of a civilian standpoint, let's say, and hopefully that can then go into government. So that those are give them some money so that they can do what they do and grow, and then bring them here so that they can see the possibilities.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Super interesting. Learned a lot. Thank you. All yours, Pablo.
Thank you.
Thank you.